Hey friends, welcome back to episode 3 of the How Does It Feel series. Today we are joined by Zaynab and Mahian, and I've kind of been sat on this episode for quite a long time and I've been really excited to edit it. Actually, what I didn't expect at the start is it's turned into 3 different parts. So this is part 1, specifically where they talk about their life up until this point and everything that they've kind of done in the past, and it's really interesting to see how it fits together. But I hope you guys enjoy it, and I'll see you guys at the end.
Yeah, I'm ready.
I'm ready. How are you guys feeling?
I feel alright.
I feel good.
Do you want
Are you ready for your close-up, sir?
Yeah.
I'm Zaynab. I'm the co-founder of Cereal Box Agency and Pushpa.
I'm Mahian. I am the co-founder of Pushpa, and I lead talent or recruitment at a startup digital bank called Vemi.
And tell me a bit about yourself.
Go on then, Zainab.
So I was born in London, raised in Saudi Arabia, but ethnicity-wise, my mom is Pakistani and my dad is Bangladeshi. I've always been in the non-profit space. I did my academic career, both undergrad and postgrad, in international development and then later in non-profit management. So I've always kind of been in like the social good impact space. Luckily, I had the opportunity to marry that up with my natural passion for marketing in 2020 when I founded Cereal Box with my incredible co-founder. And what else? Oh, and then I founded, and then I met him in 2023. 2023. Yeah, so I met him in 2023, and then he told me about his idea for Pushpa, and we got together and then soon founded Pushpa together.
Okay, nice. What was it that led you to go into non-profit? And
So I was one of those kids who never knew what I wanted to do. I remember like one of the earliest activities when I was in school in Saudi was we had to like write down what we wanted to be when we were older, what we wanted to do. So everyone was like, cure people or become a doctor or teach people. And on my homework, and I still remember it because my dad was like, what the heck? I wrote do good stuff. And like that was it. That's all I knew I wanted to do. I never had a specific passion for everything. I'm a full-on like jack of all trades, master of absolutely none. And because of that, I think I was always naturally falling down the path of nonprofit work. I started volunteering at a really young age. I felt really moved by like the opportunity to help and use your skills at your disposal to help, which was really cool. And then I think after my first few like non-profit volunteer roles, I kind of just knew this was supposed to be for me. I did think about going into like international business management. I went to like one taster session. I think it was Queen Mary, and I was like, yeah, hell no. Everyone was so profit driven, and that just wasn't what I wanted to do. So I think because of that, here I am.
yeah. So it was almost like your values led. You knew that your values were about doing good, and then that kind of led you.
Yeah, I definitely so. And I think the reason why I had that value so ingrained into me as well was because at a really young age, my parents were naturally the ones who taught me a lot about religion. While my mum was quite fixated on a lot of like the rules of it, my dad's main intention was to focus on like character and purpose. And he'd always taught us from a very young age, which is why I can proudly say that me and all my sisters, alhamdulillah, had the opportunity to go into something that gives back. Because of that, I think our idea of what it means to be like a Muslim and to have the values of a Muslim is to have the appetite to give back and use, like I said, whatever skills and resources you have at your disposal to turn it into something that gives back to other people. So I think that was like the core value that he put in us, which explains why that homework was like that. And then, and then it's just set me up, I guess.
So where does the marketing come into it?
You know, I've always enjoyed like making content and making things look pretty. I think I've always naturally had like an eye for what can captivate people's attention. I think also I'm very sensitive to people's emotions, and I like to think that I could make quite a compelling case to get someone to see something from a different perspective. And I think because of that, I always found like a natural inclination towards marketing. I never was like formally trained in anything up until quite later on, but early on, social media came about. I was a good like very basic graphic design. I always found myself like jumping into roles like that from when I was at like a startup to when I was like working for other charities too, when I realized that their marketing and fundraising looked really rubbish. Because of that, I think I just had this, I didn't really realize at the time that it was marketing that I was doing. I just was trying to make more people give or make more people buy something or so it just was a natural flair, and then I ended up being able to create a startup in it, and then actually was formally educated in it, which was good.
So that came after you created the startup?
Yeah, that came after Cereal Box. So that with social media, a lot of what you learn on the job, and there's so many tools and resources out there for anyone to look at anyway. So I did a lot of like the free like courses and like all the Google certificates and stuff like that. But I never actually paid for a course until later on, until I felt like I actually needed some more insight into like how to make XYZ happen. Because a lot of it also evolves and moves quite quickly. Like soon as you like buy or learn a course that's something got to do with especially digital marketing, it changes in the next year anyway. So there wasn't any point to it. But the one thing that I did do is I looked at a marketing director's, I did a course of like marketing directing. And that was basically how to manage a marketing team and build an efficient one. And that was more useful because it taught me more about people skills and how to like cultivate creativity in people, especially when you yourself are creative and have like a very clear vision of what you want, but they're trying to get everybody else to see it like that or create space for them to come forward with their ideas too. That was the only formal education I had in marketing.
Okay, nice. And now you get to combine the two together.
Yeah, which is, I feel really lucky that I get to, I always say to people as well, like, I feel like as a marketer, you have a big responsibility to influence people's decisions in a positive way. Because we're in this like unique role where we can essentially encourage you to do something positive or do something negative, sometimes against your will. It's our responsibility, therefore, to make sure that it's something positive, which is why I think like ethical marketing is something that really needs to be addressed and looked into in more depth for profits. But because I get to work in the non-profit sector, I'm happy to manipulate people to give as long as it's for a good cause. Yeah.
Did you ever, because I was having this conversation with a friend actually who was kind of working on maybe I think it was like the Google ad side of marketing, and it did feel very unethical, especially the industries he was working with. Was that ever an option for you to go kind of corporate with the marketing?
I think the only pressure I've had to go corporate or sell out has been when we've been approached by companies as an agency who want to work with us and their values don't typically align with ours. For instance, if it's like a e-commerce brand where their products are not sourced ethically, but they're like margins are like really healthy, then that's a big one. Or like we had a big bank who invests in a lot of unethical industries, so like the arms trade and tobacco and alcohol. They really wanted to work with us as an agency, but we said no. Although it was really tempting because they were offering us like upwards of $1 million for a contract, which is crazy to think about. But yeah, we had to say no. So there's always been like a financial, I think, temptation. But then once you reevaluate like what's important to you and what the risk is potentially of encouraging people to do something that might create some sort of harm, then immediately it's easy to like make your decision because ultimately you know what's right.
Yeah, so is Cereal Box exclusively for charities and non-profits?
So initially, yes, that was always the plan. We only wanted to work with non-profits. As time is going on, though, we're realizing that the market is getting more crowded. There's more agencies that are popping up that are focusing on non-profits. We're also realizing that the ad space is also getting more crowded, which is making it really complicated to compete against other, not just charities, but brands for space on your feed, which is becoming complicated. And then also, thankfully, we get to work with like a whole range of different charities, from small ones who work on really like bespoke and niche problems. And we get to work with really big organizations like that are associated with the United Nations. And that plethora of charities that we work with is really great. But it also means that our our agency fee has to vary quite a lot. And if that's the case, then our income sometimes isn't as dependable. For some charities, for instance, the smaller ones, if they can't afford to pay for certain months, we have to like waiver the fee, because essentially it's not their fault. And a lot of these charities are doing their best. I think there's a huge misconception around like charities are there to take your money and they're using it unethically. Of course, there are cases where that happens, but in the UK, they're heavily regulated. And a lot of these charities are just trying to get by, and the people who work at them are spread so thin, but are so passionate about what they're doing. So they're doing what other people would never do for like, even for a fraction of the price even of their time. So yeah.
Yeah. So it's almost like you're using, but by increasing your scope, you're allowing yourself to then almost help the charities even more.
Oh yeah, that was the initial question. yeah. Sorry, I just realised I went on a tangent. So as time goes on, we're realising that we're going to need to there's going to be a need to like diversify the types of charities or even clients that we work with. So we're hoping to like expand into other companies that are in the for good space, whether that's through service or product. But we're also experimenting with other ethical and sustainable e-commerce brands too, which we've been experimenting with. But most likely that will fall under a sister agency, which we've just registered, called Milkbox. So they will focus on all the for-profits, and Cereal Box we can protect and continue to focus on the non-profits.
That's so exciting.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
You want to tell us a bit about yourself?
A bit about myself. Should we start when I was a little baby? I'll start when I was young. So I was born in London, grew up to Bangladeshi parents. Normal childhood. My dad owned a restaurant, obviously. My mum was a housewife who then went into teaching. Had a really, really good life when we were younger. Then I went to school here, in high school in the UK, then went to university in Manchester, studied business economics, and loved Manchester so much I ended up staying. Stayed there for another, I think total 10 years. Well, it was 10 years actually. Worked in recruitment for 9 years, predominantly financial services, fintech, banking, and tech essentially. And then moved back to London 3 years ago now, and co-founded Pushpa, and also joined a new ethical startup digital bank, focused around ethical banking and Sharia compliant banking. So it's been a whole host of different things.
Yeah, awesome. Just gonna cut down. So what got you into recruiting?
I fell into it. I don't know why. I don't think I actually wanted to do it. I just went. I wanted to stay in Manchester. I think the biggest thing for me was I wanted to stay in Manchester. I was coming up to the end of my degree, and I was looking around. What did I want to do? I sort of looked at like business analyst, but then there were loads of recruitment jobs at the time, and it seemed really fun. So I ended up going in, and at that time it was like a construction infrastructure recruitment company. I was only there for like 9 months before I moved to my most recent place. But there was nothing specific. I don't think I was necessarily tied to it. I think the main focus was I wanted to be in Manchester, and I would do whatever I can to stay there.
Okay. And did you ever feel like I don't know what the recruitment industry is like, but did you ever feel like you were compromising any of your values or to do that work?
At the start, no. At the start, definitely not. I loved that. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the social element. I enjoyed what you deliver as a consultant, the clients that you work with, especially when we went into financial services. I had a keen interest in economics regardless. So I think moving away, I think if we forget about the construction and infrastructure one and going into, it was predominantly risk, analytics, data, and it was with large banks, early startups. I think I really enjoyed even the risk element was, basic economics. How does a bank function? How does a lender function? I really enjoyed understanding the mechanics around all of that. And that was what my job entailed. From a values perspective, not really until most recently, I'd say. And what you realise, I guess, is that it is very much just sales. And you're selling constantly, which is fun and good. I also think, in my 20s, it was great. Like you meet so many people. It's a great industry to socialise, have fun. And then slowly, when you realise, regardless of progression, you're just constantly hitting a number with which I felt anyway, personal to me, was there was no other added value that you're providing afterwards. I think that's where I slowly started to do it, but where I slowly started to think about, does it really align? But yeah, up until that point, no, I don't think it did.
Yeah. And is it similar to what Zaynab said about ethical marketing? Because obviously you're trying to recruit, but you want to make sure you're doing it in a way that's not misleading anyone as well.
Yeah, I guess for me, it was never, it's hard to even, what does ethical hiring really look like? I mean, the only other way, you could look at it now is sort of from a diversity perspective, which is very much a new thing. And the real answer is that no one really does too much about diversity unless they actively do it. Really, people want the skill set. And I noticed that afterwards, that actually, unless the core team really believe in it, it's not really a priority. So I think that was an issue later on. I think when I got more experienced and you're looking at boards and you're looking at senior leadership roles, I think more internally it was more of a factor when I was in the company that I was, and I was looking at a senior level and I was thinking, well, there's no one that looks like me here. I think that was more of where I started questioning, the industry as a whole, and whether I saw myself in the long term.
So moving a little bit on to Pushpa now, actually, the same question. How do you think, or do you think that your previous experience led to you working on Pushpa?
It's a whole accumulation of things, I think. I definitely think it played a massive part. I'd probably say, like I said, going to Bangladesh when I was younger, being around my grandparents. Both my grandparents had an active role in impacting people's lives. So my mum's dad, who's 95 odd at the moment, he's unbelievable, right? He's a great guy. But he used to live in the UK, so he's from Bangladesh, came to the UK, but he used to go collect money for when Bangladesh was going through the war to help with liberation. So he used to pull money from diaspora in the UK back in the 60s or whatever, 70s, 60s even, and then take that money back to help fund Bangladesh's independence. And then my granddad they called him the chairman of the village, and he used to support every family. He had a restaurant in Brighton, and he used to support the whole family or the village. And it was, honestly, when you were in Bangladesh and there was a queue of people outside the house coming for his help, and he used to just support them in whatever they needed, whether it was family, whether it was job, whether it was money. Those are massive impacts, or massively impacted it. And I think when I was growing up and going to working, I think it was more understanding from an economic perspective and financial inclusion perspective. I think that's where it sort of triggered it, because Pushpa actually wasn't meant to be what it is now. Previously, the first bit it was probably more of a fintech crowdfunding platform or a peer-to-peer lending type platform. And that was purely due to my experience with working with a number of founders. And I was like, these guys are creating such cool products. There's got to be something that can actually make an impact or impact people back home. So actually, yeah, it would. Now looking at it, it was because in 2019, when I first wrote down the idea of Pushpa, it was how do we fund, whether it's through credit or lending, small or vulnerable people in Bangladesh, which essentially is like microloans. So I think it did have an impact more around seeing really cool people do really cool stuff and thinking there's got to be something that we can take and use it for Bangladesh or South Asia in general.
Yeah, it's really interesting because it's almost like saying it out loud made you realise there are more connections than you realise.
Yeah, I don't think I think about it enough. Like even my grandparents. So, we only spoke about this 6 months ago. I never even thought about how my grandparents probably influenced what I did. And like when I actually just said it out loud, this is what they were doing, and I'd seen this and heard about this. I just thought it's crazy that I'm here now creating a way for people to connect with back home, putting money together to help solve economic problems for people who are most vulnerable. So and that's only just comes to when you just take a second and think about it, which is really weird.
Almost like your core values are so subconscious that you never make the connection otherwise.
Maybe, yeah.
That's a really good way to put it. That's
I'll say it on my country.
yeah. That's really cool. Yeah, and I think I hope so. Anyway, that's really nice, right? I really do hope that's the case.
Yeah, it sounds like it as well. I think when you grow up with someone who's so integral in the community, and it's a very big part of them to give back.
Yeah.
That's kind of what you grow up thinking as well.
Yeah, I hope so.
Okay. Same to you. So, do you think, or how do you think, what you did led to what you're working on now?
I think working with so many like non-profits and charities, I realized that there needs to be a different way to do it. And I think that's when Mahian came to me with the idea of Pushpa, I'm pretty sure he thought I was exaggerating when I was like, this is incredible, like you need to do this. And he was like, no, seriously, no, like take all your bias out, you know. But the reason why I think like everything that I'd been working on in the past looked at charity in a very one-dimensional way, and giving back in a very like transactional way. There needed to be something else that challenged that, especially as we like move forward and as our communities evolve. Like, it's not only about like having a digital product, I think, that would make giving more convenient, but showing people that there is more in it for them when they choose to be part of something that's more impactful. And in this like peer-to-peer lending structure and stuff that Mahian initially had written down, that paves the way for people to understand that they can do something that benefits them, but also has an like profound impact on a life back home. And I think another thing as well that's really impacted like why I've chosen to do this as well is like my connection to my heritage. So even like taking out like the charity experience and from like an operational perspective, like what was captivating about Pushpa coming from a more personal space, I'd say, the idea that our connection to places back home as part of the diaspora community, it will continue to be fractured as our generations move forward. Because as someone who can barely speak Urdu, Arabic, and can maybe say one word in Bangla, it's proof in that our connection will continue to erode if we don't do something about it. Even moving beyond like language, food, and fashion, being part of the economic legacy or history of a country, I think is such a powerful thing, especially when the founders of the countries that have made us who we are, some are still alive and are still part of the generations that we interact with now. So it just makes it even more compelling to be part of something like that. And finding out that I was Bangladeshi in like my mid-20s meant that I needed to start paving a way to connect with my heritage. Coming from a background that was led by impact-driven work meant that this path felt really natural to me. It felt like the way that I expressed my connection to not just myself, but to my community, to my Lord, to whatever it is. And yeah, and doing this through Pushpa just felt like a natural next step.
That's really nice, isn't it?
Hey friends, so that was part 1 of Zaynab and Mahian's episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed recording it and editing it. For me, if I had to think about the one key takeaway, it was really interesting to hear about all of the things that they'd done in the past and how when you kind of see them objectively, they look like isolated things that maybe don't have relation to each other, but actually when you kind of piece it together and you take a step back and look at the bigger picture, everything fits together in a way that you wouldn't have expected, and it's almost like there's a reason for everything. And I know people say that, but when you actually see it in practice, it's, you know, gave me goosebumps. And so I think that's a really special thing, and I'm glad that they were able to talk about it. So the next part of that episode, we'll be looking more closely into what Pushpa Fund is and all of the intricacies involved. And I think it's something that the community has really backed, and it's really amazing to see the work that they're doing. So I'm very excited to have them discuss what goes on behind the scenes and give a bit of insight into that part of the journey as well, because what we see on the outside is a very polished, very professional exterior, and it is professional on the inside as well, but it's kind of a different side to it that I'm very excited to share. So I hope you guys enjoyed this part of the episode and join me for part 2. Thanks.